Digital Foundry is proudly sponsored by the Logitech G935 headset.
Hey everyone, welcome to the second Digital Foundry Direct live, well not live, we are recording this, in Los Angeles, E3 2019. It's the evening after the Microsoft conference. I'm here, of course, with Mr. John Linneman.
Richard, how's it going? We're here together for the first time in LA at the same time, but for slightly different reasons, as you know, but here we are in this interesting, cool place. So so Microsoft. I was there front and center, capturing native 4K imagery.
We'll be posting some of that on our Patreon site if you want to see that in pristine 4K 60 hertz quality.
I do. And I was one of two people capturing in 4K, we should say. So there's not a lot out there.
So where are we going to begin? There are a ton of discussion points.
Oh my goodness, they showed a lot of stuff, didn't they? So they kind of said straight up like 60 games they were going to show. So yeah, I guess the first thing then that they kicked off with was Outer Worlds, which is Obsidian's game.
Right, yes. It looked like an Obsidian game.
It did look like an Obsidian game, which in turn looks kind of like a Bethesda game, if you will. No, but you know, Obsidian does awesome work on title, so I'm kind of excited to see what they do with it. From a technical point of view, I mean, there's not a lot for us to say. I mean, they kind of showed a bunch of different things. There was like the Minecraft Dungeons thing, there was, which that actually looked all right. But I guess one of the first ones that really looked great to me was there's that Blair Witch game.
Right, yeah, that was interesting
because I have no idea what to make of that, actually.
Well, it was kind of guess the game to begin with, wasn't it?
At first I was thinking with the way Capcom revealed Resident Evil 7, I was like, wait, is this going to be like Resident Evil 8, you know? Or is this like Outlast 3 or something like that? And then it's Blair Witch.
I thought it would be a Silent Hill game at some point in there.
Could have been something like that, but the visuals on display looked really good, and it was quite interesting. A lot of detail in the scene, some pretty cool effects. It's kind of a nice looking game. Along with that, there was Ninja Theory showed a new game.
Right,
which I think was actually leaked beforehand. Bleeding Edge.
Including the video, I think, that they showed there.
I'm interested to see what they do with it, but, you know, that's not really my style of game, per se, you know. It's very strange for me to go from something like the narrative-driven stuff they've been doing, like a Senua's Sacrifice, like Hellblade. To me, it looks like inspired by stuff like Borderlands and Fortnite and all that, with the colorful characters, but like melee combat. This is the kind of stuff they started with, and, Battletoads.
Yeah, let's flash back to our E3 preview, because you were looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that was one I mentioned.
I guess the question is, are you still looking forward to it?
I have to wait and see how it goes, but I'm not a big fan of that style. That the way it looked was a little, I mean, if it was a Laserdisc game, I might be okay with it, but no, it's just kind of
CDI.
Open-ended. Like the levels just looked very empty and plain, and the character work was a little odd. And I mean, I need to see it for myself to say for sure.
I think, you know, just to be a bit brutal about the whole thing, I'm struggling to remember much about it. The flight simulator looks awesome.
It took a little bit for the whole conference to get going in that sense. So let's talk about the ones I think that stood out the most, rather than just rambling through the whole thing. So, and yes, we will get to the talk about Project Scarlett, because I think that's perhaps the most interesting thing for us. But yes, Flight Simulator.
It looks awesome.
That's really surprising. Like, when I saw the trailer, I was expecting them to pop up Flight Simulator Horizons. You know, it looks like a flight version of what they did with Horizons. Now, of course, Microsoft Flight Simulator was very serious in the past. It's a little interesting to see, hey, it's coming to Xbox as well. The visuals were stunning, and they specifically advertised that it uses like some of the Microsoft backend services for the data and the geography and everything, but it ended up looking really impressive. So I'm actually kind of curious to check that out.
We were having a talk about that, and it was like, just imagine if Playground Games did do
I could see that, actually.
It would be awesome. It would be like a super realistic Pilot Wings, and we just haven't had a game like that for...
Yeah, but it would all be within that world, and kind of with more of that chill vibe that those guys always go for.
Yeah, definitely. So that was the first game where graphically I was quite impressed with what I was seeing.
Also, for me, another one that sticks out was Ori and the Will of the Wisps, because I love the first game. Just a wonderful action platform Metroidvania style game with phenomenal soundtrack. So I played this last year. I didn't do a video on it. I captured it at the Microsoft Showcase.
Right.
But the performance was terrible. And I was like, okay, this is so far out, and even said 2020. It feels a little unfair knowing that the original game was 60 FPS that,
Yeah.
you know, I don't want to be too harsh when a game is so far from being finished.
Yeah.
But I'm still very excited for it. This, though, looks significantly better than that old demo that was shown a year ago. So it does kind of feel like they've really tried to push the visual angle pretty significantly. There's a lot of like really complex set pieces, large creatures, and just they seem to push a little bit more of the three-dimensional effects. And I assume it's going to be a Unity game as well, because the first one was. It was one of the more optimized ones.
A bit of an issue that I've got with the whole conference is I didn't know what was real time and what wasn't.
I agree.
That really annoys me because I'm not interested in pre-rendered stuff that may or may not look like the final product.
Exactly.
Show us the games. I don't really mind if performance is a bit wobbly or something, or even if they pre-render it but do it to the actual game visual standard. You know, I'm perfectly happy with that. But it's to the point where things just look pretty awesome, but you just don't know if they actually are or not. Let's transplant this into other forms of media. Let's say you go and see Avengers Endgame and the visual effects are like nowhere near as good as the trailer. You'd be annoyed. This sort of concept of giving us this idealized version of the game, which may fall short, it kind of annoys me. And this is why I was really impressed with the Call of Duty Modern Warfare reveal, because they actually just went straight out full real time on PS4 Pro, no less. That was like, okay, yeah, this is the real deal. And it's still 3 months out. But, you know, I realized that early on, you know, when a game is coming in development and it's early on, then maybe they haven't got much to show. But a lot of this stuff was like early 2020, so
exactly,
it would exist.
I'm totally done with the CGI trailer.
Yes.
It's just not interesting.
Yep.
I mean, people aren't watching that just to see CGI movies.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, PC version, I'm down with that as well.
Just show the PC version.
If
Say, hey, it's PC version.
If you want to overcome your performance issues in development and you know, just chuck it on the PC version, that's absolutely fine. I'm cool with that.
And I'm a little more surprised at stuff like Gears of War 5.
Right.
I really thought we'd see a lot of that. I thought this was going to be the blowout moment for it because, you know, it's September, right?
Yes.
And we got next to nothing.
Yeah,
like what they showed.
Hey, wait for the summer. It's going to be awesome. It is the summer.
And they're like, here's the plan. It's like some multiplayer stuff coming, multiplayer, and we might peek at the campaign like a week before it ships.
Did we actually see more in-game stuff last year?
We did. They showed more Gears 5 last year than this year. It almost reminds me, in a way, of the reveal of Halo 2 back in the day, where they blew everybody away with the 2003 demo, and then the summer before it shipped, they just like, here's some multiplayer. It's like, you know, it's cool. It's like, okay, that's not really what we wanted to see at the show, so I'm a little sad that we didn't get more Gears 5, but I have every confidence
we know
that
it's going to be good.
It's going to be good. It's going to look great. So I'm not worried about the game or anything. I just wanted to see more. Psychonauts 2. So this is an interest. So Double Fine, right? I love Double Fine. They do great stuff. Very interested in Psychonauts 2. It looked awesome. I think that was very much a legit trailer. 60 FPS. It looked just as you'd expect. So that's great. But Microsoft back in the day for the original Xbox, they pretty much tried to cancel Psychonauts, right?
Yep.
And then Majesco picked it up. And then, you know, they went off and did their own thing. And now Microsoft has now purchased Double Fine and are releasing Psychonauts 2. I like that story. So Tim can be proud of what happened with his studio there. But he kind of got the last laugh, if you will. But they're a good studio to have around, I think, because they do so much creative and interesting work. It's exactly the kind of thing Microsoft has kind of lacked in the past. Right. Perhaps.
Yeah.
So that is interesting.
They have an eclectic mix of studios that they've acquired. I think my only concern is that the bar is set so high with the Sony first-party studios.
I know.
And when we saw the Obsidian game, Sony Santa Monica aren't going to be worried about the technical proficiency of the competition there. I still think there's some work to be done there.
They do have 3 tech powerhouse studios, though. They got 343, they got Playground Games, and of course they got the Coalition. So those guys together.
Turn 10.
Turn 10 as well. Yes, you're right. Absolutely. Turn 10 as well. Those 4 are...
But there's no... Well, the evidence suggests no Forza this year.
Yeah, I mean, actually the Forza Horizon 4 Lego stuff was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like because that engine has great materials work already, and like seeing the Lego bricks integrated into that world. I mean, they kind of did this with the Hot Wheels stuff in Forza Horizon 3, which was really fun. This looks cool too, so I like that.
Curious if it's still going to be 60 frames per second on X.
I don't know. That's a good question.
It would be the first Lego game for some time to run at 60 frames per second.
Since the PS2 era,
Yeah.
they used to. So I guess obviously there was the From Software, George R.R. Martin thing. Looks stylistically cool, but we know nothing. One for me that I really liked the look of was Tales of Arise. So I've always kind of enjoyed the Tales series, but the last few installments haven't been great. And
Right.
it felt very dated. Felt like they didn't quite know what they wanted to do with it. This looks completely different. Obviously, brand new engine. I think it was actually Unreal this time.
Right, okay.
It looked awesome though, so I'm really interested in that. Fallen Order, yes, that was a really good trailer actually.
It was.
So actually, I kind of feel like it looks like Star Wars 1313. Remember? It really does. If you go back and look at those trailers and then you look at this, it's like, okay, it's actually...
Well, that was Unreal.
It was Unreal. This seems to be Unreal. This has excellent motion blur, seems to be targeting 60 FPS. To me, it looks great. I love the animation work they have going on. I'm very eager to see more of that. Phantasy Star Online 2.
Right.
It's a weird one because that's been stuck in Japan for years. Now it's getting an Xbox version, and it's only for America. So we're kind of screwed.
Right, okay. That's
So
not great, is it?
That's not great. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. There was some interesting indie games, like 12 Seconds.
So yes, it's kind of like an eclectic mix of games.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I have a few questions about this, starting with, are these E3 games, are these games that you want to showcase at your biggest event in, what is 90 minutes?
I think the answer to that, this is part of the reason why I don't think we saw Sony this year.
Right.
Because we are kind of moving to the next gen. There's not that much necessarily ready. I mean, they still obviously have a lot coming. You're right, they didn't have that many heavy hitters. And I think it's just, we're at that point where it's a generational shift.
Right.
So they can't reveal their full hand. Although they definitely teased it. Before we talk about is there any other things that stuck out to you?
Well, Keanu Reeves.
That's right, the Cyberpunk trailer. Keanu, that should have been the first thing we talked about.
Really?
I mean, Cyberpunk, I have a demo to see this week. I'm
Okay.
excited to see the playable stuff. This was the first time they really showed the Cyberpunk city at night,
Right.
which they purposely went daytime last time to show the look there, so...
Yeah, they wanted to break the trope.
Exactly. But people still want that as well. And it has a day-night cycle. It was very much a trailer. So we'll see more of the game soon. But
Yeah.
I still love the way it looks. We learned the release date. It's next year, early enough. And then Keanu Reeves is in it. And the way he sauntered out on the stage and his delivery was good fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure how connected he was with the source material,
I
but
have no idea, but he had a good time with it. So yes, Keanu was great. Yeah, I mean, it was just the conference was going along, but at the top of it, Phil did specifically mention the next Xbox.
he did. Yeah.
And so we were kind of sitting there the whole time like, okay, are we going to hear about it? When's it coming?
Yeah.
And how much are they going to show? So there's two things that they talked about. First, the Project X Cloud stuff.
Yeah,
Their streaming platform.
I actually find this technology fascinating. I'm not sure I'm going to be using it. You are, shall we say, cynical about the whole
Well,
streaming.
okay, so from a technical standpoint, I mean, I used to do a lot of network backbone design and work and such in a different industry. I think it's really neat what they're doing.
Yeah.
Engineering-wise, I think it's fascinating. It's great stuff.
Sure.
And I'm very eager to see how well it works and sort of play around with it. But as a game buyer and player, it is exactly the opposite of what I want. I will not be using this for my own fun. It's literally just a technical test for me. I want to see
Right.
how it works, understand what they're doing, but I'm not going to use it. So I like to own my games, for one thing.
Well, that's true, as evidenced by your purchase recently of Rise of the Robots on the Saturn.
No, stop! We can't let the people know that I did that. And 2 3DO games and a Sega 32X game. Things I purchased before E3.
I prefer to think of it as the 3.
Oh! Hey man, don't knock the 3DO. Otherwise, Trip Hawkins is going to bust through that door.
I'm kind of getting the idea that we're teasing the audience here because they've
yes.
come here for Scarlett,
yes,
haven't they?
Sorry, we've teased enough. So, all right, Scarlett.
Yes. Do you want my impressions, or do you want to go first?
Why don't you start first?
Well, I had a message from a developer during the whole thing which basically said, Zen 2 and Navi, where have I heard that before? Which, yeah, I mean, on the one hand, where else do you go for your next-gen parts?
Yes.
On the other hand, I kind of feel this generation has been a little less interesting because fundamentally the PlayStation and the Xbox are the same.
Yeah.
Imagine two PCs, one's got a better graphics card than the other. That's, at the nuts and bolts level.
But to be fair, for developers, that's a good thing.
That
does make things easier. You don't want two radically different architectures and a different approach to graphics on one machine, and then that creates problems. So I understand it's a good approach. It makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of the difference is going to come from some of the details.
Possibly, yeah. But the big focus of their trailer was the SSD, which again sounds familiar.
But again, that's a good thing as well. I mean,
definitely.
That is a great thing. Loading times have been an issue the past two generations. So it almost seems like they're pushing back to try to recapture like the old days. Cartridges, memory mapped ROMs. It's not exactly that, obviously, but they can really get that speed back. That would be excellent for overall.
That would be excellent.
The gaming experience. So that is a good thing. They mentioned, DDR6 memory.
Yes.
Their official specs, I think, actually say hardware accelerated ray tracing.
Well, not just the specs, it was in the trailer.
That's right, it was in the trailer.
Specifically were talking about real-time ray tracing achieved via hardware acceleration. Which is interesting because it came in the same breath as having a Navi GPU.
Right.
I don't think it's a big secret to say that AMD are not having hardware accelerated ray tracing in their Navi GPUs for the PC side. That work is all still in development.
Yep.
So where has this RT core for AMD hardware come from? This is the big question. And I think the reason they were also keen on stressing the hardware accelerated side of it is Sony did
not. Yeah, Sony's messaging about ray tracing was very flimsy. They referenced sound a lot, like ray traced audio.
Well, Killzone Shadowfall did that.
Yeah, exactly.
Ray traced audio.
You're right, it did.
Yeah.
So their message on that was less clear. Microsoft's directly saying hardware accelerated ray tracing. But it's kind of a hard thing to walk back if you say that. But is it really? Like, it would have to be extra silicon built specifically for this machine because it's not part of Navi.
Yeah, that's the bottom line, and that is kind of the big mystery. Oh, the second mystery, of course, is what happened to Lockhart, which we were talking about in the preview video, which is like, hey, we're really worried about this 4 teraflop Xbox.
The lower end box.
So last year at E3, Phil was talking about the next generation consoles.
Yes.
This year, it was down to a singular.
That's true.
It was
a console.
A console. I have spoken to developers about this across the year, once this sort of concept became known. And there's always been, to everyone I've spoken to about it, a certain degree of suspicion and worry. If we look back at the sort of console generations, the lowest spec machine has always been pain in the bum to work with, hasn't it? I mean,
that's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, I'm putting that's the PG-13 way of expressing some of the sentiments. Is it gone? That is the question, because it certainly seems like it.
I think that would be beneficial to everyone.
Yeah.
And this is what makes sense to me, is especially cross-gen will be long, so Xbox One X will continue to be supported, I'm sure.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then there's Project X Cloud, so there will be a way to enjoy, I suspect anyway, you'll be able to enjoy those new games that way, perhaps, on a different platform.
Yeah, if you need a cheap entry-level console, then stream it.
Exactly.
Because the people who are likely to buy that cheaper console, far more likely to already own a mobile phone.
Maybe next gen's already here with the Xbox One S discless edition. It's already here.
It's not.
No, it's not.
Some stuff that I picked up in the trailer, they showed the SoC
Yeah, but like you said, the angles and the way it was focused, not as clear as a Scorpio.
No. This is the thing that I found really interesting is that 18 months, well not 18 months, it was a year and a bit before Scorpio came out. They came out with these super clear renders of the Scorpio motherboard.
And it was accurate.
It was, by and large, it was accurate.
Exactly.
The size of the SoC was correct. The memory configuration was correct. They were even showing the cooler there.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Which turned out to be a bit of a revelation.
Exactly.
And at the time we were thinking, this is just a BS render. You can't really take too much from it, but it was actually pretty close to the final thing.
Yep.
And they actually moved it on in some respects this time by showing actual PCBs, no renders. We saw the SoC,
that's right.
We saw the G6 memory, which seems to be the 14 gigabits per second modules. And then what I really loved about this was they showed all of this stuff, real objects, but then they shot it in a way that obscured stuff.
If you could say it is more cinematic, some nice shallow depth of field, some angles. I mean, as somebody that does use cameras, I understand why they would do that, but for us trying to look at the silicon,
I think
not useful.
Why they were doing it was to kind of not give away too much.
Yes, actually, that's probably more accurate.
But you could see it was G6 memory, but they said that in the
so nothing new there.
PR.
Actually, memory bandwidth, the SSD stuff. There's a lot of focus on very fast I/O.
It just looks like a really expensive machine.
It does, that's true.
Yeah, except that we can't get a measurement on that SoC. There's a number of things that are kind of sort of bothering me about it, specifically the price of all of this. This is why that they were talking about doing a Lockhart machine to begin with, because
price. Well, maybe they found ways to bring that price down. Maybe it's more ballpark reasonable than we think. If Sony's also embracing things like the SSD stuff and things that seemed prohibitively expensive, perhaps it's not actually that bad, because you're right, if they were going to launch Scarlett at $500, $600 or more $100,
it's looking like I kind of think it's a $499 box at the moment.
Actually, I do think you're probably right. I would expect both of them to launch around that price point.
You see, I disagree with you there. I think PS4, they've had so much success with $399.
The thing is, can Sony really afford to take that loss? And can Microsoft really afford to make that same gamble again? The $399 PS4, $499 Xbox One was not a good thing for them.
Well, that was Kinect though, wasn't it?
It was Kinect's fault that time, but still, the price is what matters. So can they get this down? I think that's going to be a very careful kind of battle between them to it's like a political thing, figuring out the right price. They can't launch with a much more expensive box than Sony.
What if it is Pro versus X all over again? You'd pay that extra $100. I would.
Yeah, I mean, of course, but we're us. Not every, you're right. If it is like Pro versus X again, then yeah, obviously a Scarlett would be the more capable machine. And it's with early adopters that might actually work. And then they can get the price down. I think it does kind of hinge on things like ray tracing and everything. Like if Microsoft has a more robust hardware accelerated solution and they can show it, show the benefits of it, and Sony can't quite match that.
It's an interesting debate, and the reason I'm here in Los Angeles, I'm not going to E3 at all.
That's right.
I'm here with AMD talking about Navi and Zen 2.
Exactly.
So unfortunately, I can't talk about it today. I can talk about it tomorrow.
Yes.
But a lot of the information we have there is, let's just say, interesting and ties in quite closely to what I think is going on with PS5. But that is a discussion for tomorrow.
That's a different discussion.
But what I will say is that they're talking about, again, it kind of annoys me, 4 times the processing power of Xbox One X. That can mean anything, really.
Exactly, that's the thing.
What bit, if any, is 4 times more powerful? Is it a combination of the CPU and the GPU?
We know that the teraflop thing isn't everything, but you know how hard they leaned into teraflops for Xbox One X marketing. You didn't hear that thrown around this time.
There was no sign, just like Sony.
Exactly.
There was no mention at all of the teraflops.
But again, it's not the sole factor here, obviously. But that was very important to their marketing strategy in the past. Yeah. And they've clearly changed, and I think it's pretty clear why.
Yeah. So I'm going to be interested to see where they go next.
I think
the issue they had was that the messaging was too similar to PlayStation 5.
But at the same time, they did kind of do one thing that was different. They showed some software. One piece of software.
Right, which got you very excited.
So yeah, Halo Infinite, which was actually announced last year.
Yeah.
You saw that bit as well at the end. It looks, I mean, it was a very small scope demo, but what they showed looked really, really nice. So it looks like a full-on reboot of what Halo is, and it's a launch game. That's what they're saying. They want to launch the new console with a Halo game, which obviously means they're trying to channel that original feeling, and I think that is really important to this. To have an app like that at launch, again, that could reinvigorate the Halo franchise as a whole and help launch the console. It's exactly the kind of launch game it needs. It would be equivalent, you know, with Breath of the Wild or Twilight Princess from Nintendo. Although, do we think Halo Infinite would appear on Xbox One?
Well, last year they said it was.
Yeah, exactly. So cross-gen. And also, another thing I'm wondering about with cross-gen is the discs themselves. I'm curious, with the way Microsoft's been going about things, would they ship a single disc to the store that works across Scarlett and Xbox One?
I think they would.
That seems like what they would do. And that's actually really interesting. You could conceivably, they could sell one version of the game and it just runs on the other machines as well.
Yeah, or they could just put 2 discs in there if needs be.
If need be. Yeah, that starts to ramp the price up though, but a little bit.
A little bit. I don't think it would be a problem.
I don't know if Microsoft...
I'm just wondering if there'd be like compatibility in assets in terms of texture formats and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Use this.
So yeah, it does, and 50 gigabytes limitation to run that on the older machine, and hopefully
that's true.
Yeah. So I don't know about that.
Did they comment on whether they have a disk drive on this? Sony did.
Yes, they did. I believe they did. It's going to be physical, and
I hope so. I mean, I would assume so, and I hope so. That's very important.
You're not keen on the Xbox One SAD? The
SAD.
The SAD. The S all digital.
No,
SAD.
I am not. No. Most of the game, I mean, aside from... a lot of my Xbox collection is discs, I admit.
I guess my last question, was there any ray tracing in that Halo teaser?
So I was obviously sitting in the audience looking at that large screen. I feel like I need to study it again to look, but if you looked at the way the shadows worked in that demo, very diffuse kind of shadows, they seem to be casting in a way that, again, I need to look at this a second time before I make any sort of judgment call. Like, this is just, it made me wonder, like, are they potentially using like ray trace shadows there? It's not impossible. You'd say like, oh, ray tracing should be super obvious all the time.
No, it's
but that's not true of it, because of the fact that developers have worked so hard to simulate exactly what ray tracing does without it. But obviously, the reason you want ray tracing is flexibility. You can do so much more with it that's much more realistic if you really take advantage of it. But a constrained scene like that isn't necessarily going to make it super clear, because you can still fake the lighting pretty well in a scene like that.
There were some nice things I enjoyed in, to go back to Scarlett, a variable refresh rate, commitment to that. I hope the implementation's better than Xbox One X.
Yeah, I mean, I assume Scarlett and PS5 will both be, I mean, they have to be HDMI 2.1, but that's still... most TVs aren't that yet.
Yeah, 4K 120 they were talking about.
But yeah, come on, 120 FPS at 4K, that's hard to do even on a 2080 Ti.
Sure, but it doesn't need to be native 4K, I think, is the thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, once again, 8K, let's just not go there.
I mean, that's like saying PS3 is a, 1080p machine. I say that, though, they had Ridge Racer 7 at launch, which was 1080p 60, but 1080p was not very common on the PS3.
No,
so I can see an occasional 8K game on these machines, but I don't think it would be a regular target, to say the least.
So, I guess we've kind of mined this one for all it's worth.
Yeah, we kind of rambled our way through it, if you will. That's how these live E3 things go. Overall, I enjoyed it, but I walked away a tad disappointed. Too many trailers.
Yeah, no live gameplay demos.
Like no live gameplay demos. I just can't believe that we had none.
None whatsoever. I think there's the sort of sense that maybe in a focused media blitz, the live gameplay demo may have run its course. I disagree.
I think those are the ones people would be talking about.
Yeah.
That's what people really want to see. Because people don't care about CG trailers.
No. That's the bottom line.
Unless it's literally just an announcement, like, hey, this game exists, look forward to it, I understand it, but when you have stuff like Gears 5, it's so close to completion, why are you not showing gameplay demos? I mean, something.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like I saw anything really new from that game. It was just announcements.
Yeah, well, you saw Under the Stage. That was exciting.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
The next gen stuff was interesting, but I guess the hardware accelerated ray tracing was pretty much the only surprise.
Yep.
I kind of want surprises.
Exactly.
I think the thing that sort of frustrates me is that I'm trying to think now of things that I enjoyed watching. Halo, Flight Simulator, Keanu Reeves. Beyond that, I'm really struggling just a few hours on from remembering much of what was shown there.
Yeah, I mean, Tales of Arise for me looked great.
Yeah.
I really like that.
But this is, you know, we've just surmised a 90-minute presentation
And
for
wasn't it
things
supposed
we
to be
liked.
2 hours? It almost feels like some things got cut or something changed last minute.
30 minutes on Lockhart.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's
We are rambling.
We're rambling now,
And
so
we're
if
sort
you're
of
still watching...
veering into abuse.
Exactly. I think that about wraps that up, so...
Okay, so we are going to be back with one more E3 broadcast, which we'll be talking about AMD, the stuff that I've been looking at the last couple of days.
Yep.
And we're going to be talking about how it relates to PlayStation 5 and possibly the next gen Xbox as well, once we've gone over the slides and had a good think about it. But as always, if you enjoyed this nonsense, please like and subscribe to support the work we do here at Digital Foundry. And of course, really important this, ring the bell for instant notifications. And yeah, follow us on Twitter, and if you want to see the stuff from the Microsoft conference in pristine quality, consider the Digital Foundry Patreon. But that's all from us for now. Thanks for watching.
Featuring 2.4 GHz wireless, 50mm Pro G audio drivers, and DTS Headphone X 2.0 surround sound technology under the hood, the G935 headset delivers the ultimate wireless audio solution for gamers, whether you're playing on PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, or mobile. Order yours today from Logitech G.